going to ask you questions, and then I'm going to ask you to put your answers into the chat. And Christy has been so kind to volunteer to help me out. She's going to be reading what you write in the chat. And so we have a lot of valuable materials to cover. So why don't we get started? And I'm going to share my screen here. And Chrissy, just let me know, can you see that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. So today I want to talk with you about what I call the Great Awakening, because today companies and their leaders are finally waking up to a new normal in the way they must run their businesses and the leaders they must be in order to thrive in the 21st century, and especially because of the global initiations that we're experiencing today. And by the way, this new normal is exactly what the younger generation millennials have been challenging their leaders to cultivate for years. And yes, it took a pandemic to finally wake us up. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, did you know that in April of this year, 4 million employees quit their jobs? This is the highest number since 2000. And in June, an additional 3.9 million quit their job. With all these resignations, there are a record number of job openings, 9.3 million. In fact, companies today are looking for a different kind of a leader. If you're a leader in transition, you have an opportunity to be that leader. There was an article recently that was published in the Wall Street Journal that reported that companies are again recruiting new leaders, but they're giving priority to different values in them. There are various factors like the impact of COVID-19, leaders guiding a mostly remote workforce, and stakeholder capitalism that have expanded the role of a leader beyond just running a profitable business. And so companies are looking for different qualities in candidates. This was a cartoon in the Wall Street Journal. And here's a candidate being interviewed and saying, well, yeah, the years of 1966 through 95 are blank because I was on tour with the Grateful Dead. Okay. So what are some of the qualities that companies are looking for in candidates? They want to know your personal values and your life experience. They want leaders who have the ability to communicate with a range of stakeholders. They want to focus on workforce well-being. And they want leaders who have empathy, sensitivity to others, being thoughtful and understanding of others and their viewpoints and their feelings, much different than in years before. They want leaders who can anticipate what's ahead, not just what's in front of them. And leaders who are comfortable with uncertainty and can thrive and have in crises. So companies are also asking different questions to their candidates. Regarding a remote workforce, how will you lead a remote workforce and create a sense of belonging so your people are motivated to achieve their best? Regarding DEI, how have you created a diverse and inclusive environment in prior roles? Or regarding belonging, how do you bring a divergent group of people together? Regarding well-being, how do you create a culture that includes mental and physical well-being, especially during these times when your employees will have work-life balance and won't burn out. And by the way, burnout is probably the #1 reason that employees are quitting their jobs. Regarding retention, with so many employees quitting their jobs and workers globally considering quitting their jobs, how will you retain employees, attract new ones, and create a culture where your best people feel they're valued and have a stake in the company enough to stay? And regarding engaging and developing millennials, a new generation millennials are in management roles and taking higher senior positions. How will you develop and coach them so they're the kind of leaders who can thrive in a new normal? And regarding vaccinations, what's your belief on vaccination of employees and those we need to hire? And how would you handle this situation? Now, the key is to answer these questions before they're asked of you. Today, leaders must have a basic understanding and point of view on diversity, equity, inclusion, on generational and gender issues, on the changes that are happening in technology, on digitization and how it's changed the way people operate, on changes in values and lifestyles because of millennials and Gen Zs, or we call them Zoomers, on employee physical and mental well-being, and lastly, on environmental, social, and governance, the ESG factors. We are living in a new normal, and we're transitioning into a world where it's not just the what we do or the profitable results we get, but it's also the who we are, the essence of our character, and its impact on the culture we create. Leaders, as leaders, it takes knowing who we are, our gifts, our blind spots, our patterns, good and bad, our values, our life's purpose. These soft and fuzzy things that generations prior to millennials didn't consider to be important are now becoming valuable because at the heart of this shift are millennials. They are the largest generation in the US labor force with over 56 million individuals. And they have many needs, but there are three needs that keep echoing, and that is to feel heard, to use their gifts, and to have meaning and purpose in their lives. I mean, how many of you want that too? Yeah, I think all of us, because it's not a generational need, it's a human need. And the workplace experience has enormous impact on business outcomes. It just so happens that what matters to millennials matters to all of us. They're just the first generation that's really taking a hard stand. There was a study done by the Gallup organization, how millennials want to work and live. And they found that these are the changes that must happen in leadership today. This is the past, and this is the future. From my paycheck to my purpose, from my satisfaction to my development, from my boss to my coach, from my annual review to my ongoing conversations, from my weaknesses to my strengths, and from my job to my life. So what's the path to go from the past to the present and into the future? And how do we make the shifts, especially for those of you that are transitioning into the next chapter of your life? Well, over the past decade, I have found it's by embodying the leadership capabilities that are needed to thrive in the 21st century. So what are some of those leadership capabilities that you'll need to embody? So here are a few. Take a look and notice the number beside it. And what I now want you to do is I want you to put the number into the chat of the leadership capability that you'll commit to develop into a 21st century leader. And here they are again. And Christy, let me know what numbers are coming up.
Okay, don't see any yet. Ten, 7,
7,
8, 7
Okay.
and 8, 5, 2, more tens.
Wow. Okay. So what's the
1.
path to embodying these leadership capabilities? It's LeaderShifts. They are the principles of Salbona leadership, which was born out of the millennial generation. There is a whole story about the birth of Salbona leadership that's in my book. But Salbona is a Zulu greeting meaning I see you, as in seeing the whole person. And today, Salbona leadership, and at the heart of it, the gift-centered approach, is in over 30 countries. And here are just a few. Now, the method is documented in my book and through stories. And when we launched the book at the end of 2018, we were very fortunate because it hit the #1 bestseller in leadership and in business management and the book sold all over the world. And I go into more depth in my book about the leaderships that we'll discuss today. So 21st century leaderships, there are 5 of them, and they are key to thrive in the 21st century. Because when you make the shift, you're then able to embody the leadership capabilities that are needed to lead in this century. So 21st century leaderships, there are 5 of them, and let's go over each of them. The first one is from control to connect and receive. When I talk about connection, I'm not talking about communication or connectivity. I'm talking about how I feel when I'm with you. Connection starts by quieting our minds, especially when we are triggered. So a question to all of you is, how many of you remember a time when you were in an interview or negotiation or important meeting and you were triggered in a negative way or thrown off your game? Put in Y for yes or no, N for no into the chat. And Christy, let us know what you're seeing.
Seeing lots of Y's.
Got it.
A no, mostly Y's though.
Okay. So for those of you who wrote Y for yes, here's the second half of the question. How many of you remember having thoughts or judgments that made you feel anxious or frustrated or brought up some fears? Put in Y for yes or N for no. And Christy, what are we seeing?
Lots of Y's. I haven't seen an N yet.
Okay. All right. So this is why it's so important for us to do practices that help to quiet our minds, that we engage in daily, because they help us to let go of our thoughts that turn into our stories, that become our realities, and nothing has even happened. These kinds of practice help us with our mental well-being. And why is this important? Because did you know that a Gallup study just came out, the state of the global workplace, and they found that we are going through a mental health pandemic today, that negative emotions, worry, stress, anger, sadness amongst employees globally reach record levels in 2020. But the studies also show that these negative emotions have been rising over the past decade, even before COVID, and that 7 in 10 employees are struggling or suffering rather than thriving in their overall lives. And this is why, as leaders, it's important to be doing practices, especially meditation practices, for your own mental health, and to have practices that you can introduce to your people to help them with theirs. And meditation practices are also like walks in nature, right? So here are some of the benefits of meditation. And I'm sure you're familiar with some of them. Some of those benefits you may not be, but just take a moment to take a look. And this is also why companies like Virgin Australia, Sony, Nike, Yahoo, Google, Apple, Facebook, CBRE, and my clients are finding ways to integrate these kinds of practices into their schedules, not only for themselves as leaders, but for their people as well. If you're a leader in transition, doing these practices will give you the edge. And why is that? Because most leaders today, they know how to do their job well, but building a culture in a post-COVID world takes a leader who is connected within themselves so they can connect with others. This is the kind of sensitivity that companies are looking for today in their leaders. And in the back of my book, in the Coach's Corner, there are many of these kinds of practices. Connection is the portal to employee engagement, especially with millennials. Now, you may be asking, so why is it important to engage with millennials? Well, studies have shown by the year 2025, millennials who were born approximately from the years of 1981 to 2000 will comprise of 75% of our global workforce. That's 75%. Millennials today, they're taking leadership roles, and the older ones are already in leadership positions. So as you interview for companies, you may find that a millennial will be interviewing you. So why is engagement important? Well, according to the Gallup study, 80% of employees worldwide are not engaged or they're actively disengaged in their job. And that means companies are running on only 20% of their capacity. In the US and Canada alone, only 34% of employees are engaged. And that means 66% are not engaged or actively disengaged. The study also shows that creating an engaging workplace culture comes down to the manager or leader, that an important part of good leadership is higher employee engagement, which boosts productivity, innovation, profitability, safety, and a host of other lucrative outcomes. There was an often cited 20-year Gallup study that pegged that disengaged employees are costing the US labor force more than $350 billion per year in lost productivity. That's $350 billion per year. So what's the answer? It's to learn to connect and receive within ourselves so we can connect and receive with others. This is the doorway to trusting and letting go of controlling everything. Today, leaders have been described as kayakers in a whitewater world. And there have been books that have been written on this, by the way. They have to know how to navigate their organization, their company, in a complex world where nothing is predictable. And they have to have the capacity to let go of controlling everything, be comfortable with uncertainty, and be able to solve the most complex problems as they unfold. So let's experience connection. And we're going to do this through a practice of leadership presence, because leadership presence starts with a connection within ourselves. And leadership presence is so important for us as we lead our people and as you interview for companies. So let me start with a story of connection. Many years ago, a business colleague of mine was invited to a press conference of the Dalai Lama. And she said she'll never forget the excitement and the buzz that was in the air as they waited for His Holiness to appear. All of their eyes were focused on the front entrance where he was supposed to come through. And then suddenly, she said, the room went quiet. It was so strange. It was like this blanket of quietness came over all of them and they stopped talking. And then they looked at each other. And then they looked behind. And there he was, the Dalai Lama, coming through the back entrance. She said she'll never forget how she felt, how we all felt. His powerful presence made such a connection with all of us that it quieted the room, it quieted our minds, so we were present and focused to be able to address him. Well, this true story describes an amazing connection. But I think the question becomes is, how does the Dalai Lama so easily connect and bond with a room full of strangers? Well, it's not a chance moment. It's the way he lives his life. It's the disciplined practices that he does every day that allows him to connect within himself so he can connect with others. And when I'm talking about practices, I just don't mean meditation and yoga or things like that. I mean how we live our lives. The time in the morning that we get up, our morning rituals, the foods we eat. Do we get stuck at our computers all day and never take a break? At the end of the day, do we crash and veg in front of the TV, or do we read a book? You see, life is a practice, and the practices we engage us turn us into who we are. I want you to think about someone who makes you feel good by just who they are. Someone who calms you down when you're feeling stressed by their presence. Or someone who walks into a room and lights it up without saying a word. I want you to imagine if this someone were you. Imagine if you had the leadership presence that connected and influenced people, like the people you lead or people you interview for, in a good way by just who you are. What would be possible? This is the power of our leadership presence, and we take it for granted. We think it's only the things we do, our achievements, our accomplishments, our skills, our experience that most matter. And we forget it starts with our presence. How that presence influences others. Do they feel good around us enough to be able to want to know us better in that interview so we get to the second one? Do they feel good around us enough to ask more questions about the products and services that we're selling, or to negotiate in a way that both of us win? Our leadership presence starts with a connection within ourselves so we can connect with others. And as Maya Angelou, the civil rights activist, poet, and award-winning author said, I've learned that in the end, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So I'm going to give you a practice that I've given to my clients that they do that's helped them to embody the kind of leadership presence that influences others in a positive way. And embodiment is important. Why is it that I say that? Well, because you can have the insight that you know you need to be more patient. But unless you do practices on a consistent basis that allow you to embody what it feels like to be patient, you'll never develop the habits that lead to your competency where you are patient and not just trying to act it. So we're going to learn a centering practice that I learned from my teacher, Wendy Palmer, my sensei. Wendy is a 7th degree black belt in Aikido. And Wendy took the art of Aikido and she translated into the business world. And for more than a decade, Wendy has traveled the globe working with leaders. And her practices, by the way, are backed up by neuroscience. And some of the companies she's working with are NASA, if you can believe that. That's so amazing. So I'm going to share with you what the practice is, and then we're going to get up and do it. Okay? Are you guys gamed? Hopefully, yeah? All right. So you can do the sitting down, but it's better if you stand up. And you're going to stand with your feet shoulders width apart. And you're going to imagine that your breath starts at the back of your heels. And you're going to inhale up the back as if lifted by the blue sky. And then you're going to slowly exhale down as if water is trickling down the front of your body, flowing right into the earth. And we usually do this 5 times, but when I guide you through it, we'll do it only 3 times for the sake of time. And then next, you'll connect with the earth. You'll feel the earth underneath your feet. You'll feel it supporting you. And then you'll imagine that the field in front of you is equal to the field behind you. And that means even if you have to go through walls, you imagine the walls are not there. You imagine that the field to the right of you is equal to the field to the left of you. You'll imagine the field above is equal to the field below. And then you'll take that field around you and you'll expand that bubble that's around you as far and as wide as you possibly can, beyond the walls of your office, beyond the neighborhood, to the ends of the other side of the globe. And then you're going to ask yourself a question, what makes me smile? And you're going to think of someone or something that makes you smile. Hold on one second. And then you're going to let that warmth fill the bubble. Just let it spread throughout the entire bubble. And you're going to feel the warmth and you're going to rest in it. And you're going to let it support you. And then you're going to ask a question. What's a quality I want? And you're going to think of a quality. And it might be a quality that you need when you go on an interview, like confidence or authenticity or being present. You're going to think of someone or something that has that quality. And you're going to put them in your back, like they have your back behind you. So I thought of the quality of compassion. And I thought about the Dalai Lama. And then you're going to let their energy just flow right through you as if your body is porous, and fill the bubble with that quality. You're going to let that quality just support you and rest in it. And you're just going to feel it around you. This is your leadership presence. And you are the center of that presence that can influence others. So, to get the best experience, let's all stand up. And if you can't, it's fine to be seated. But if you can stand, that would be really great. Make sure you're muted. And then you can do this with your eyes closed or open, whatever allows you to focus on the practice. Eventually, it's better to do it with your eyes open. I also want you to notice your presence right now. How do you feel right now? Remember, our presence is the energy we send out. It's our aura, okay? So I'm going to stop my screen right now. And okay, if everybody can stand as much, great. All right. So if you're seated, please make sure that your back is straight. That's important. All right. So feet, shoulders width apart. And I want you to imagine that the breath starts at the back of your heels. And if you're closing your eyes, it's okay. I want you to inhale up the back as if lifted by the blue sky. And then I want you to slowly exhale as if water's trickling down the front of your body, flowing right into the earth. And again, inhale up the back as if lifted by the blue sky. And then slowly exhale as if water is dripping down the front of your body, flowing right into the earth. And again, inhale up the back as if lifted by the blue sky, and keeping that uplift, slowly exhale as if water is trickling down your body, flowing into the earth. And now connect with the earth and feel the ground under your feet. Feel it supporting you. And now I want you to imagine the field in front of you equal to the field behind you. The field to your right of you equal to the field to the left of you. The field above you equal to the field below you. And now take that field and bubble that's around you, and I want you to expand it as far and as wide as you can imagine, beyond the walls of your office, beyond your neighborhood, up into the universe, down into the core of the earth, to the other side of the globe. And just feel that enormous space that's around you. And now, what makes you smile? I want you to think of someone or something that makes you smile. For me, it's blue skies. And let that warmth fill the entire bubble and feel its support. And just be there in that warmth. And now I want you to think of a quality that you would like to have, maybe for the rest of the day, maybe a quality you're going into a meeting later on. And I want you to think of someone or something that has that quality. And I want you to put that behind you as if they have your back. And then let the energy of them flow right through your body and into the bubble, and fill the entire bubble with that quality. Let that quality support you and rest in it. And as you are the center of that quality, of that leadership presence that you have, if your eyes are closed, slowly open them. And then in that presence, have a seat. I'm going to bring my screen up again. So I want you to notice right now your presence. How do you feel now compared to before you did this practice? And if you can write that in the chat and Chrissy, let us know what you're seeing, that would be great.
Calm, connected, calm and relaxed, calm, more expansive, confident, relaxed, settled, open, smooth, centered, relaxed, ready, calm, confident, lots of calm, quiet, positive, free, Quieted. I like that.
Oh, wow. Nice, nice.
Yeah. Calm, free. There you go.
Great. So I want to invite you to use this practice to start your day so you're in the leadership present you want to send out to others. My clients start their day with this practice, and they also use it before they go into meetings, interviews, speaking presentations, negotiations. And when they get triggered, they use this practice to recenter and come back to a calm and grounded state. The key is this: to do this practice when you're not triggered, so when you are, it works. So let's look at the second leadership, which is from conformity to see and accept. Millennials have a saying, one size does not fit all. Millennials want to be seen and accepted as unique individuals, not part of a mass herd. And they are pushing their leaders to honor and respect the diversity and inclusion of all human beings. This is a generation who wants to bring their whole self to work, not be one person at home and one person at work. So seeing and accepting people for who they are starts with seeing and accepting ourselves for who we are. Our gifts, our blind spots, our patterns, good and bad, our values, our life purpose. Today, companies want leaders who know themselves on a deeper level, because it's not just what we achieve, it's the character of who we are. And in knowing who you are, it's then finding alignment between your personal values and the core values of the organization, between your life purpose and the mission and purpose of the company, and then helping others do the same. So let's look at a few of the most important areas to consider in knowing yourself, especially when you're looking at the next chapter of your career or your life. So let's look at our gifts. So what's a gift? A gift is what we were born to bring naturally into the world. It's what we do without thinking about it. It's just who we are. It's different than a strength, because a strength we work hard at to be competent in. And we can get so good that it looks like a gift. But a strength takes energy and effort, where a gift is effortless and fills us with energy. So I'd like you to put into the chat one of your gifts and an action that backs up that gift, because our actions point to our gifts. And here are an example of some gifts and actions. And then Chrissy, let me know what you're seeing.
Right. So you want people to put their gifts and actions in the chat?
Yeah, if they could do that, that would be great.
Okay. I'm not seeing any yet. Oh, analytical and curious. A servant's heart, compassion, listening, intellectual curiosity, figure things out, analytical, insight, high standards, drive, passion, curiosity, continuous learner.
Great. Okay. So knowing our gifts allows us to find different vehicles to use them in. And finding the vehicle where all our gifts come alive is our calling. Our calling actually opens up to our life purpose, our why. And so what are your blind spots? We overuse our gifts until they become our weakness. And this leads to our blind spots, what we are blind to and need to learn. And our blind spots are not negative. They are the other side to our gifts. So let me explain. So I want you to think about someone who has the gift of drive and determination. That might be you. Someone who is good at achieving results. Someone who's good at getting things done and checking it off their list. When they overuse that gift, what do they miss out on? I mean, think about it. Perhaps is it enjoying the journey along the way? Is it connecting with others because they're so fast to get things done? The blind spots are determined by how we define our gifts. But usually the other side to this gift is slowing down, being present, connecting with the experience, connecting with others, and being patient. Now I want you to think of someone who's the gift of being analytical, someone who's good at analyzing external information and from there making decisions. When they overuse that gift, What do they miss out on? Is it perhaps opportunities because they take so long to analyze it that things kind of pass them by? Usually the other side to this gift is being able to make decisions with your intuitive knowing. Now I want you to think of someone who's good at planning, someone who's good at taking a myriad of ideas, putting them into a strategic plan with timelines, deadlines, milestone reviews. But when they overuse the gift, what do they miss out on? Is it perhaps being flexible and going in another direction when things don't go according to plan? Usually the other side to this gift is let go with the flow, and be in uncertainty. So here are some of the other blind spots to the other gifts. As I mentioned, blind spots are not negative. They are a roadmap to what we need to learn and develop. And we can do practices to turn our blind spots into strengths. So we have the capacity to do both. For example, we have the capacity to plan and also be flexible and go in another direction. So I want you to take a look at the gift you put into the chat. What do you think is the other side to that gift, what you're blind to and need to learn? It's usually the opposite of how the gift is defined. What's your blind spot? Especially as a leader, it's important to know what trips us up, particularly when we're in an interview. So here are the examples again, and put them into the chat. And Christy, let us know what you're seeing.
Okay, wasting time going down rabbit holes too far.
Ooh, okay.
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's move on. What are your values? So what's a value? A value is what's most important to us in our lives. So I want you to write in the chat, what's one of your values? And here is a list of values. My top value is health. What's yours? So Christy, when you see some, let us know.
Honesty, integrity, learning, fairness, helping, reliability.
Ah, great. Okay. So the next question is do you live your values according to how you describe it? I had an executive one time that told me that his number one value was his family. And he described it as spending lots of time with his wife and his kids. And so I asked him, I said, well, do you live your value? And I remember him looking at me, he said, well, what do you mean? I said, do you spend lots of time with your kids and your family? And all of a sudden he stopped and he said, well, Susan, well, I'm a CEO. I have to travel a lot, so I can't spend as much time. And I said, oh, okay, that's all right. I said, so it's a value you wish for and not a value you live. And he went, yeah, that's true. So I want you to notice if the value you put in the chat is a value you wish for or a value you live. And if it's a value you wish for, what do you need to do to make it a value you live? When we know our values, we can then find a way to align them with the values of an organization and then help others do the same. When in transition, it's important to find a company who lives their values and whose core values align with your personal values. This will allow you to be seen and accepted for who you are and what you bring. So what's your life purpose? There are many processes that I do with my clients for them to discover their life purpose, their why. But just know that it unfolds over time. And when in transition, it's important to find a company whose mission or purpose aligns with your life purpose, your why, and then help others do the same. We are in one of the hottest job markets for employees. They have the upper hand. But as a leader, especially those in transition, if you know your gifts, your blind spots, your values, your life purpose, then you have the greatest opportunity to find your path, your calling, a company where your gifts can come alive and where you can be that different kind of a leader that companies are looking for today. From expectations to intention. So what's an expectation? An expectation is our external rule of how things should be done, how others should behave. I expect that if I give you training, you'll be able to do your job. So my question is, what is your expectations of, say, finding your next position, or of what you want in recruiters or companies you interview, or just what you want in your career? Write it in the chat, and Christy, let us know what you're seeing.
Great. Nothing yet. Honesty.
Honesty.
Stability.
Stability, yeah.
Transparency, integrity,
Integrity.
a challenging and rewarding role,
Wow.
be valued, clarity, flexibility, a company that practices what they preach, stimulation, culture.
Cool. Okay. So the challenge with our expectations are that we can't control them because they're unknown and future oriented. And they prevent everyone, including ourselves, from seeing any other options except what's expected. And when our expectations are not met, we have a lot of pain. So what's in an intention? Intention is in our eternal decisions about how we will approach situations and people, how we will behave. I intend to support you in being the best you can be by giving you training. So what I'd like you to do is to take your expectation and turn it into an intention, into something you can control because it's within you. I'll give you an example. I expect that if I do a good interview, they'll put me into the next round. Replace it with maybe something like, my intention is to connect with the interviewer, receive what they're giving me, go with the flow, and to be my best. So, Christy, what are you seeing?
Nothing yet. I really like how you worded that. It's like shifting the expectation to an intention. That's really
right.
Awesome.
That's something that we can control, right?
Be clear in my asks.
Be clear in my asks.
Appreciation of unique experiences. Evolution of the role in line with the higher strength.
Wow, great.
Do my research.
Do my research.
If I am valued, I will contribute more openly. My intention is to connect with the company. Both of us bring value.
Bring value. Oh, nice.
My intention is to present my gifts the best that I can be to the companies that are hiring.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's great. So replacing our expectations with intentions as leaders, we open the door to creating a culture where people feel safe, to bring their whole self to work, to use their gifts to solve the challenges and get the results needed, to innovate the next best thing to stay ahead of the curve, to be able to develop into the leaders that can thrive in a disruptive and unpredictable world, to help the company achieve its mission because we feel a part of something greater than ourselves. So let's go to the fourth, which is from authority to authenticity. In the book, Finding Your Own North Star, Martha Beth talks about the essential or authentic self versus the social self. We are born into our authentic self. This is where our gifts lie. And as we grow up, we go away from our authentic self to our social self, to doing what other people expect of us. And we lose sight of our own North Star. Our journey as human beings is to find our North Star and to follow it. And that happens from not changing who we are, but becoming more of who we are at the core. And if you are in a career transition, there's no better time to reconnect with your own North Star, become more of who you are, and find the company culture that fits you. So what does it mean to be authentic? Emerson said, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Or as Kobe Bryant said, I don't want to be the next Michael Jordan. I only want to be Kobe Bryant. So what does it mean to be authentic? This is a never-ending journey. It's about discovering our gifts, developing and living into them. It's about discovering our life purpose, what we were born to bring into the world, and living into that. And when we do that, the possibilities are that we will live a whole and fulfilled life, not just what we achieve, but living who we are and living in the integrity of seeing and accepting people for who they are. So even if they have different views, we can respect that too. Let's go to the fifth, which is from bottom line myopia to belonging. In the very beginning, I mentioned that various factors like COVID-19, remote workforce, stakeholder capitalism has expanded the role of the leader beyond just running a profitable business. Today, leaders are understanding how important belonging is. And, think about it. You could do all the right things. You can have numbers that back up that you have diversity, equity, inclusion in your company, and people can still feel they don't belong. So creating a culture of belonging is so critical to keeping your best employees, especially millennials. Millennials value contributing into their communities. They have a deep desire to belong to something greater than themselves. And there was a study done, an international study done by Viacom, and they interviewed 15,000 millennials, and they found that 78% believe that companies have a responsibility to better the world. So how do you find your tribe? Many companies, they're looking for good leaders, but to find your tribe, you first must know who you are. What are your gifts? And do they come alive in this position? What are your personal values? And do they align with the core values of the company? What's your life purpose? And does it align with the mission or purpose of the company? And do you feel you belong? And as you're seeking out this company, make sure you learn, embody, and master the 5 leaderships, that you live into your values, that you live into your gifts and your purpose you were born to bring into the world. And then when you find this company, help others do the same. This is our last check-in. Based on the leadership capability that you committed to develop in the very beginning, I want you to type the number into the chat of what leadership will you commit to work on. And Chrissy, let us know what you're seeing.
Hey. 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 1, 3, 3, 2, 1.
A lot of ones.
Some 1s and 3s. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to leave you with this call to action. The world we're living in today requires a different kind of a leader that we were in the past. To succeed in a complex world where nothing is predictable takes an openness to let go of our so-called sacred cows that don't work in this century and be willing to listen to the needs and the ideas of the next generation of leaders. Today, employees have the upper hand. In the area of executives, according to a report by Bain and Spencer Stuart, they predict that CEO turnover in 2022 will rise as much as 30%. And why is that? One of the most important factors of this turnover is that CEO skill set increasingly don't match the company's newest priorities. The great war for talent is on. Philosopher Lao Tzu said, "If you do not change directions, you may end up where you're heading." As a leader at any level, you have a choice. You can either keep heading in the same direction or stop and see where this changing world and millennials are taking us. For the past decade, I have seen a shift in leadership. Call it what you may, but this perfect storm, driven by a new generation of leaders, relentless innovation, the 4th Industrial Revolution, and now COVID-19, racial injustice, and gender inequality, is taking us in new directions and to a new normal in the way we must lead. Imagine what would be possible if you found your tribe, if all of your gifts came alive in doing what you do and being who you are. If you came to work each day finding meaning and purpose in your work because you helped create a culture where you and your people feel a part of something greater than themselves, what would be possible? Possibly everything. Salbona. So I want to invite you to join our Salbona leadership movement. You can do it in one of three ways or all three ways. You can go to my website and join our global Salbona community. You'll get a free newsletter that comes out every other month. And the article in that newsletter is an article that I write for Ariana Huffington's Thrive Global. You can also buy the book Leadership's Perfect Storm and help transform our inner city youth. Since the book launched in 2018, all the proceeds have been donated to the nonprofit organization Youth Mentoring Connection. You can also learn how to be a Salbona leader through one-on-one executive coaching or through our Salbona Leadership Forum. It's a 12-month workshop and project lab called Stepping Onto the Global Stage in a Virtual World, a deep dive into transforming your whole self into a 21st century Salbona leader. And there is the forum for your company and yourself, and you can find out more on my website. Lastly, I want to offer this to those of you who are here today. At the end of the year, I always pay it forward. And I do that by offering a certain amount of executive coaching sessions for free. It's one way for me to give back to my community. So here's my special offer to all of you. For the first 8 people who buy the physical book on Amazon, not the Kindle, the physical book, because the proceeds go to Youth Mentoring Connection, and you have to email me as well. The deadline is Monday, the 18th. You'll get a free 30-minute executive coaching session, which is valued at $300, and you can have the session focused on anything. Your ticket in is you have to show me the physical book before we start the session. All right. So let me ask you, what questions do you have? And I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm open.
Hey, well, we are out of time.
Oh, we're out of time. Oh my gosh.
But let's see if there's a quick question. Anybody have a quick question while we're here?
Well, I have a question, but I was wondering if we can get a recording, if you can email us the copy of this presentation and the recording for the future references. And it was very nice. Thank you very much, Susan. It was very nice.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. Well, Susan, thank you so much. I took so many notes, and I really think that, you know, you've imparted so many pearls of wisdom on us. I just, it's innumerable how many things we were able to capture. And we're going to send out the recording. Please listen to it again. And Susan, I can't thank you enough for the gift that you've just given us. And, you know, I knew from just looking through and reading parts of your book that you were going to be special, and you really are. And so to anybody who is interested in speaking with Susan further, please reach out. And thank you
Christy,
so much.
Will you also
Susan.
put in your email to remind them that to email me and for them to buy the book and email me if they are interested in getting a free coaching session?
Yes, we will. We'll send that out with the recording today. And then thank you, Susan. Really appreciate that. Everyone, enjoy the weekend. We'll see you next Friday, and we have another great speaker. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Sorry, guys. Can I ask one more question? I was wondering, Susan, I'm thinking to send presentation to somebody that I know is a CEO. Is it okay if I forward it to somebody else?
Yeah.